mind you, I'm still in my clothes that I came to the hospital in. I look at my husband and I'm like, my exact words was, I think this baby is coming out of me. Welcome to my channel. My name is Shay Moore and I create content for mothers, book lovers, and I also have a podcast called Always Lit, where we spread love, inspire others, and thrive. So as you can tell by today's title, I'm going to be sharing the birth story of my two boys. I just wanted to share my experience. There were two totally different experiences, but I just wanted to share them with anyone that's thinking about having a baby or anyone that's preparing to have a baby. So if that's something that you're interested in, then stay tuned. Okay, so I had my first son in 2014. I was 21 at the time. Okay, so at that time in my friend group, I was the only one. I was gonna be the first one to have a kid. So I couldn't really go to my friends and ask them like how was the experience for them. But I was going to my older cousins and different family members, and they were all scaring the living daylights. They were scaring me. They were saying like it was no joke. I was gonna be crying. I was gonna be screaming. They were just all laughing and saying like they can't wait to see me and how bad it's gonna be. So because of that, I was terrified and I just expected that I was going to be in so much pain. But honestly, y'all, my experience was nothing like that whatsoever. So that is part of the reason why I wanted to share my experience. So many times people are scared or expecting the absolute worst when really you're about to do something that's going to be so beautiful, something that is just a huge blessing, and that is nothing that you should be afraid of. Yes, you should do things to prepare yourself. Yes, it's going to be a challenge if this is your first time, but the truth is your body was made for this. Your body knows exactly what needs to be done, exactly when it needs to be done. So with that being said, stop thinking that you have to do the work. Your body is going to do the work for you, and it's going to be a beautiful thing. So let's just go ahead and jump into my first birth story. Okay, so I had my first son in 2014. At the time, I was 21 years old. So when I went into labor, I was literally laying in my bed on my phone and I began to have contractions. At the time, I did not realize that they were contractions because everyone had told me how bad contractions were. So you know you have Braxton Hicks contractions, and I was thinking because the pain wasn't extreme that those could have been Braxton Hicks contractions. So I continued to lay in bed. They continued to come and go. Then I felt like they were progressing, as in I was beginning to feel them a little more as time went on. So after a while of sitting in my bed trying to ignore it, I got up and I began pacing the hallway. So every time I would have a contraction, I would get up and I would start walking up and down the hallway. And then after a while, I just got sleepy and I went to sleep. That should tell you that my contractions at the time were not bad at all, because literally when I just got tired, I went to sleep. So my mom woke up to get ready for work, and I was telling her, I was smiling, probably just as hard as I'm smiling right now, and I was like, I think I'm having contractions. I think I've been having contractions since last night. And she laughed and was like, girl, if you was having contractions, you would know. And she went to work. So she ended up calling me after she got to work and was asking me how I felt, and I was telling her like I still feel like I'm having them. So she called my aunt, and my aunt came and took me to the emergency room. So my aunt, so she had plenty of kids. Well, I say plenty, but she hadn't had what, like 4 or 5 kids. So she was just telling me like, you know, the pain is going to increase, and she was basically saying the same thing, like you would know if you're having them, but the pain would definitely be increasing. And she was asking me if I was timing them and things like that. So I went to the emergency room. They checked me. I was only 3 centimeters dilated at the time, and they sent me home. So I went back home, and the contractions just became inconsistent. So like I would be having contractions, and I wouldn't, and I would, and I wouldn't. So by the time my mother got off work, she was like, let's go walking. So I went walking. We went walking at the lake. I don't even remember how many laps we walked, but we was walking. And I wasn't walking like at a fast pace. I was walking at something that was definitely comfortable for me. However, while I was walking the track, then the contractions were definitely, I'm like, okay, yeah, these are contractions. So I would say it probably was about 4 p.m., 5 p.m. by that time, 6 p.m. And I was finally starting to be like, okay, yeah, these are contractions for sure. So I continued timing them on my phone, and they were still like kind of widespread. So the sun began to go down, and we went back to my house, and we began walking up and down the street that I was living on. And y'all, literally, it got to the point where literally like I'm walking up and down the street, but whenever I would have a contraction, whenever I would feel the contraction coming, so how the contractions are, like you can feel them coming, and it's like the pain just go up, 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 and then it reach wherever it's gonna get to, and then it just hold there for a minute, and then it just relax. So I had to remember and remind myself to continue breathing through the contraction, like literally deep breath. So I would, and I would continue moving. As long as I was breathing and moving, the contractions were not bad. Even though my contractions were getting closer and closer, the way I was handling the contractions, my mother was still laughing and thinking that like, you cannot be about to have a baby. So I was kind of like doubting it in my head, even though I was using the app to count my contractions, and I could see that they were getting closer and closer. So we went in the house to go ahead and get my bag and stuff ready, because like I said, they were getting closer. And y'all, when my contractions got like close, it's like everything slowed down. My mother was like putting grapes in the bag. She was fixing sandwiches and like taking her time. And by this point, I was kind of freaking out in my mind, because the town that I was living in, we did not have a hospital there. So I would have to drive to a different city to go to the hospital to have my baby. So by the time my contractions got to a certain point, I'm like, okay, we need to be going. And my mother was like putting grapes in the bag, fixing sandwiches, calling people, like taking her time, taking her sweet old time. So I'm like freaking out of my mind. Okay, so boom, get through all that. We finally get to the hospital, and we get to the hospital, and y'all, I kid you not, by the time they get me in there and get me changed and everything and check me, I was 9 centimeters dilated. And the contractions only became like, and I wouldn't even say they were painful. On a scale of 1 to 10, I would say my contractions was like a 7. But that was while I was in the car, and that's because I couldn't move while I was having contractions. And then whenever they got me to the hospital and I was in the hospital bed while I would have contractions, they was like a 7 or 8, but that's because I was in the bed and I literally could not like get up and move because they was checking me and stuff. So I was 9 centimeters dilated, but y'all, I still wanted the epidural. And the nurse was telling me, she was like, well, by the time the doctor come in here, it might be too late for you to get an epidural. And she was basically like, my mother said, girl, you at 9 centimeters, you can do it. And I'm like, no, I cannot, because I'm thinking about everything that I've been told, everything I've seen on the internet, everything that my cousins told me, like how bad it's gonna be. Like, this is gonna be unbearable. Bring me the epidural now. So I'm like, no, I want an epidural. So she go get the man that came and did the epidural, and literally as soon as he put that epidural in me, it was time for me to have my baby. And I had my baby, healthy, beautiful baby boy. And afterwards, when I thought about it, I was like, yeah, I could have did that without an epidural. I do have back pain. I don't know if that's because of the epidural or not. But afterwards, after I thought about it, I was like, I could have definitely did that without an epidural. Definitely. But because I had gotten the epidural, then of course, like, I had to lay there for a while. I had to get so much assistance with getting help and getting up out of bed and all that other stuff. So I was like, yeah, I could have did that without an epidural. And I always say that if I had another kid, that I would not get an epidural. So I had my second son in 2020. So with this one, I never even thought about getting an epidural. When people would ask me, I would just say, no, I'm having a natural birth. And I never just allowed the thought or that fear to come in my head. I always told myself, this is something that you can do. This is something that you almost did before. Your body was made for this. Your body can handle this, and you will be okay. Like, this is something that I can do. So with my son, my mom was here. My mom came to Georgia and she was here. We went walking around the neighborhood, and while we were walking, one of my neighbors came outside and she was like, hey, are you having a boy? And I said yes. And she was like, oh, I got some things that I would love to give to you. So I went to her house, and her and her husband were pulling out the things that they wanted to gift me. And I just kept like rubbing my lower stomach and rubbing my lower stomach, and my mother was looking at me and she started laughing. And I was telling her, like, I think I'm having contractions. And I remember my neighbor, her husband, was joking like, oh, we gotta hurry up and get her out of here because she's not having no baby in here. So we stayed at their house for a while. She literally gave us so much stuff, so we was there for a good while. And then my husband came and we moved all the stuff down here to our house. So once everything got moved, then I just kept like rubbing my lower stomach. I kept moving around and thinking that I was having contractions. And then I went upstairs to go take a shower. So when I got out of the shower, I told my husband, I think that we should go ahead and go to the ER because I am consistently having contractions. So we go to the ER and they checked me. And when they checked me, I was 4 centimeters dilated, but they said that I could either stay for 1 hour and they would come back and check me again, or I could just go ahead home, and if my contractions like progressed and got closer and unbearable, then to come back. So me and my husband agreed that we would stay there for an hour and just let them come back and check to see where we were. So during that hour, y'all, we're in the little, I don't know if this would be like the triage room or what, I don't know, but it's the little room where it's just a bed and nothing else. A bed and a chair. So I asked for a birthing ball. She bought me the ball. So during that time, I'm sitting on the ball, and me and my husband just talking. Like, we're talking, we're joking, we're laughing, and I'm just on the ball. I'm rolling on the ball, I'm bouncing on the ball, and we just talking. So then somewhere in the mix, contractions escalated, and I began standing up, and I would just rock from side to side, just like this. Just like really slow. Anytime I felt like I was having a contraction, I would rock. And that's because the room was so tiny. So like if I tried to walk, I probably could like take 4 steps to have to turn around, take 4 steps to have to turn around, which I did. I began pacing back and forth from wall to wall. But whenever I would have a contraction, I would just rock, standing up just like that. Y'all, when I tell you those contractions got rough, but I don't even know like how far I was, like how, as far as dilation, I don't know how far I was dilated by the time they got rough, but I'm assuming I was at like 9 or 10, and I'll tell you why later. So it got to a point where, like, okay, I have contractions and I'm just rocking back and forth, and then it's like I'm having a contraction and I literally got my hand around my husband's neck, and I'm just leaning, putting all my weight on him, and he's rocking me back and forth. Because it just was hurting so bad. But when I tell you this was such a beautiful experience, like when I say my husband stepped in and like really did what needed to be done, he did. So I hope that this is like, you just involve your partner as much as possible, because this is a beautiful experience for them as well. But so when the contractions got too hard, or like when the contractions were becoming like really rough to the point that I felt I would want to sit down or something, my husband was like, no, I got you. I put my arm around his neck, and he literally would not let me sit. He was just like, put your weight on me, I got you. And he would rock me from side to side, and then it would go away, and I would start walking back and forth and breathing and stuff. And he just kept like speaking positivity over me and just telling me like I got it and everything. Oh, I love that man. So yeah, that went so quick to the point that I was like, I don't know, I just started feeling something. I just thought, mind you, I'm still in my clothes that I came to the hospital in. I had on like a Victoria's Secret shirt and some black leggings. And after a while, I look at my husband and I'm like, my exact words was, I think this baby is coming out of me. And I'm still trying to walk back and forth, like I'm still trying to pace back and forth, but now I'm walking like slow and my legs are wide, and I'm walking like I'm scared because I really felt like my baby was coming out of me. So I said to my husband, I was like, where the doctor at? Like, I know it's been an hour. And he looked at the phone or his watch or something, and he was like, yeah, it's just at an hour. As soon as he went to open the door to go find a doctor, she was coming in, and she was like, okay, let's see where you're at. Let's see if we're gonna be keeping you. I get up on that bed, and that woman looked, and when I tell you, her face expression, her body language, like everything changed. And she was like, oh yeah, he's coming out of there. And she says, she just started yelling out stuff. I don't even know what she was yelling out, but she just started yelling out stuff. People started coming in the room, and she was just saying like, we're about to have a baby. And the woman came in, and I don't know, oh, the woman came in, and I think she was trying to get me to sign some papers or do something. And my water broke. And then the doctor that was going to deliver my baby came in and was trying to get them to like, basically trying to get me to deliver my baby in this room where there was nothing there. No warmer, no nothing. If like things went left, an emergency took off, like nothing. When I tell you nothing was in the room but a bed and a chair. And she was literally thinking that she was about to deliver my baby in there. So now you got the nurse and the doctor kind of like going back and forth, because the nurse is like, no, we're not about to do that. And the doctor was like, just bring it. She's like, negative. You just roll her over. Y'all, literally the delivery room was right across the hall. Thank you so much to that nurse for sticking up and doing what is right, because when you know that a baby is coming out of you, when you know that you are about to have a baby and you are literally about to deliver, you don't have that capacity to be your own advocate. That's why it is so important for people to hire a doula, or so important for people to have a support person there, whether that be your boyfriend, your husband, your mother, your cousin, your sister. Have some type of support there to advocate for you, because things will start moving so fast, and some of these doctors will try to do things that they don't have no business doing. So when I say, like, I'm processing the fact that I know for a fact a baby is coming out of me right now, I don't have it in me to be like, no, you're not delivering my baby here, we need to do this. I don't have that in me. My husband trying to make sure I'm okay. So like, I just appreciate that nurse so much for standing up for what was right. But anyway, they ended up rolling me from the small room that we was in, across the hall to the delivery room, and I literally only had time to I didn't have time to take off my shirt. I didn't have time to take off my sports bra or nothing. When I took those pants off so that she can check, because I feel like the baby was coming out, that's all I was able to do. So I literally went into labor with my sports bra and my t-shirt on that I came in the hospital with. Whenever they got me in the room, the doctor just looked at me and was like, okay, you can just push when you're ready. And literally he was out of there. And yeah, that's how that happened. So even though my second pregnancy, the birth story seemed to get like a little wild, a little chaotic, it was still a beautiful experience. The pain level was still okay. It wasn't to the point where, oh my God, I felt like I was gonna die. Oh my God, I felt like I had to scream. Oh my God. And I know that it's different for everyone, but just take this as proof that you can do it. If you are thinking about having a baby without an epidural, you can do it. If you are thinking about having a baby and you want an epidural, you can do it. Your birth is supposed to be your birth. It's your body. Do what makes you happy. Do what you think will be best for your body and best for your baby. The goal is always to have a healthy mama and a healthy baby. So I'm rooting for you. I hope you got some support people that's rooting for you, and good luck on your journey if you are pregnant and get ready to have a baby. And just know that you can do it. You can do it and you will do it. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give me a thumbs up and consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already done so. Bye, girl.